Welcome to Revolution number 10, At the Table, a podcast where we're going to explore different solutions that just might change the world, from feasible to nonsense. This is Revolution number 10, you're at the table. Hello and welcome to today's At the Table. We have a group discussion today with several special guests. I'm really excited about it. Our topic that we will be discussing in terms of feasibility of how it would change the world, if it would change the world. In the United Kingdom, in 2018, they finally implemented a sugar tax. It's a soft drinks industry levy. So we are going to take it a step further from the sugar tax itself and refer to it as a bad food tax. So not just sugar, but trans fats and over-processed foods, things that are extraordinarily prevalent here in North American culture, where I feel like, you know, a lot of European countries still have the notion of fresh food, right?
Yeah.
So we're going to go with a bad food tax. So I'm going to introduce my guests, and I'm going to open the table to the conversation. Maybe I should have done that the other way around and introduced the guests first and then talked about the topic.
You know what? Fuck it. We're doing it this way this time.
So today at the table, I have got Christian. Say hi.
Hello, this is Christian.
Tamika.
Hi, I'm Tamika.
June, who is not a Korean.
That is correct.
Ryan.
Generic, good-looking white guy.
My generically good-looking white friend. And Jeremiah, who was
a bullfrog.
Was a bullfrog and is also another generically good-looking white man.
Yeah, what
Christian.
representing.
Christian's older. He's like 45 plus. So he's in a different generation.
Identify as beige.
Touch of gray.
Okay, so I'm gonna open the table now, and obviously you all know me. My name is Anna, and that's Heather.
Sup?
And we're going to talk about this bad food tax. So let me put it out there, okay, guys? So there's already tobacco, alcohol, and like carbon tax, and all these like bad, and I'm doing air quotes. Can't see that on the audio, but I'm doing air quotes. bad things, sort of taxing. So, do you think that implementing a bad food tax in Canada / North America would promote or perpetuate some kind of status quo shift in perspective, shift in ideology, shift in our fucking habits? Take it away, Ryan. You look like you have
absolutely.
something to say.
I think it would have a huge effect. If you want people to change, you need to start at the economic level for most of us, especially in the first world, because we're so rich.
Right.
And we do have the option, unlike a lot of other nations around the world. And we rely heavily on processed foods, and our education and our health systems are taxed beyond belief, just in terms of the amount of people, the amount of resources. So I think a tax would really shift people's behavior, probably for the good.
So do you think maybe, and here's the thing, maybe we should call it not a tax? Because North Americans get really fucking woo when you mention the word tax. So, like, do you think that maybe if it was a bad food
Penalty?
Ooh, that's even worse though. Because in my opinion, I think it would be. I would try to use this bad food tax as a dissuasion. So we're like, you know, your garbage food is more expensive, so buy a tomato. Right?
Yeah. I don't know what the answer in that regard is, because
there is no right answer, June.
I know. It's just I think all the time, buy a tomato. That's the better option.
Well, just so y'all know, June is really small and skinny, and she's blonde and clearly takes care of herself because she's got great skin.
I hate vegetables. I hate minerals.
But she'll still go for the tomato.
No, but I'll go for the tomato and I'll let it rot in my refrigerator.
So how were you brought up? Like, in terms, I guess it would be relevant more so in like how you were brought up in terms of eating yourself, because like my family had a garden. growing up. So for me, grabbing the tomato is the natural thing. But in today's day and age, and since the Second World War, it's been about convenience. And then the microwave came along, and it's been about just as fast as you can get it. And we don't put any level of worth on, we're not taught that eating healthy leads to a healthier state of mind. Nobody tells us that until we have type 2 diabetes. It's quiet group. Hey guys, go.
Well, I was going to say, first off, cheap food is I think it started kind of in the 40s, So it was kind of to help the homeowner have everything quick, microwaves, all that kind of stuff. And now it's low-income families kind of rely on that kind of food. So
whereas at one time it was a rich person thing, now it's become a
yes. And so, and if you think about the market, right? Not everybody can afford
tomatoes
to buy fresh foods and fresh produce. Spinach, the spinach has gone up in itself. It used to be $5, now it's $8.
Yeah,
celery
and stuff like that.
Celery this week.
So then, do you think this would change that?
Yes, it would change it, because then what about the families who can't afford to already buy, healthy foods? If you put a tax on it, but then it got me thinking: who are we taxing? Are we taxing the consumer, or are we taxing the companies who make this?
Ooh, good question, Tamika. I'm going to say, if we're going to go along the veins of the UK model for their sugar tax, they're taxing the industry. Okay. So let's say that's what we're doing. We'll be taxing the industry. So anyone who's choosing to use whatever XYZ chemical number red, fucking whatever, they get taxed. But then, sorry, Ryan.
Stand up.
Go ahead.
I was about to boldly say.
That deep intake of breath,
Very much so. The wind has left my sails, but no, it's still here. Are we taxing the industry, or are we taxing the consumer? At the end of the day, the industry is not going to lose its bottom line on a tax. It's going to be passed on to the consumer. Right?
Yes.
And why are we taxing? We're taxing for a couple of reasons, all right? So when we look at the famous sin taxes, be it tobacco, alcohol.
The sin tax.
Yes.
Yes.
Those are the only sins we have? What else?
There's so many more right now.
Prostitution,
really? I'm sure on tampons and condoms.
Yeah.
But not Viagra.
Is it a sin to bleed? Sorry.
Right.
Yeah.
Well,
I mean,
baby Jesus has
filthy, disgusting women and bleeding vaginas.
Ask Alabama. And,
too soon, Ryan.
Is it too soon? Maybe it's not.
Too late.
Too late. Yeah.
Ryan, you have the table.
all right.
Alrighty then.
Get out! Jude's trying to take over here. Sorry, Reimer. Continue.
More wine for Jude.
But the idea of having a tax on things, I think, actually does have an impact. I'm going to tell you a little story here. It was a little while ago in the city of Toronto where I, as a dog owner, would depend on plastic bags on a double deuce day when my dog would take a crap. Yes. And those bags were blowing everywhere. So if I ran out of a bag, I could always find one conveniently blown against a fence.
Right.
As soon as they introduced that 5 cents a bag,
right,
the neighborhood cleaned up.
Nice. Okay.
Disappeared.
So it works.
So it did.
people started keeping the bags, started using the bags for themselves.
Right.
I paid for this. I'm keeping it.
Their own food.
Yeah, they're picking up their own poop.
And then I'm standing in a grocery line trying to be a baller to some ladies behind me while I got a chocolate bar going, hey, put 25 cents worth of bags. That's right, ladies. I can afford this chocolate.
So, do you need a bag with that? The gentleman paid for them.
Bags for everyone.
No frills.
You get a bag.
And we can extend this question as how will that even have an impact on carbon, but I don't know if that's a whole nother
topic, right? Let's not go. We're keeping it philosophical here.
Yes. So pour some sugar on me and put a little tax on that.
But here's the thing. So here's the question, though, because I was also thinking, and I didn't think about the industry
I when I thought about a bad food tax, for some reason, I didn't think that all of a sudden the expensive nature of vegetables would remain the same. For some reason in my brain, I thought sugar tax, bad food tax. Now all the good shit's gonna be affordable. I don't know why I thought that.
No, I think you probably thought that way because
I'm an idealist.
Because you're an idealist, but I think because in your head you probably thought sugar tax, people are probably going to maybe be less likely to purchase items that are going to cost more than vegetables because they're going to be less expensive now, and maybe it would even encourage people to maybe learn how to grow their own vegetables and stuff, right? Therefore,
that's sort of what I was thinking. Is that it would be a symbiotic, like back and forth with the consumer would start making better choices.
But
one thing we haven't talked about is who gets to decide what is a bad food and what is not a bad food, right? And so when you talk about lobbying, you have these really powerful lobby groups who are there to persuade the legislative process into getting what they want. And so we already know that the system is broken. We decided what is good and what is bad, right?
Okay.
So
color number blue.
Just because you have that choice and you know it's going to be, or let's say the playing field has been leveled now. Shitty food is just as expensive as good food.
Okay, hang on.
Right?
Okay, let me clarify for a minute. I'm just as an example. Maple Leaf's fucking ham, okay? Maple Leaf's ham has $1.99 ham, cooked ham. Then now they have the all-natural product of the better version of the ham, okay? $5.99. What I'm saying is the bad food tax would force Maple Leaf to equalize that product and make it so that the $1.99 shit fuck cancer ham is not available, but the $5.99 good ham is now $2.99. Do you understand? So we're like meeting in the middle.
You have to take the tax and apply it
in the
to
middle.
foods, right? Like if you're going to tax corporations on creating bad food, then you take that tax and you create incentives for other companies that are creating better options and healthier options, and they get the kickback.
So then they get a tax break?
Then you get a tax break.
But would the tax break fall down to the
for putting
consumer?
organic?
Also,
Because
I love how you're got that angle. I love that because I'm not even thinking about it.
It's a business.
That should be a prerequisite.
Can I ask a question that is I'm totally ignorant to? But you brought up a great point, Anna, that I'm not fully informed about by any means, and that is the $1.99 versus the $5.99 ham. To me, I've always thought it's the same fucking ham. It's just marketed in a different way. So it's justifying the cost. They're meeting their margins or whatever you want to call it.
Well, why is that cancer ham even fucking available? Why is that cancer ham still available? If your company can make a superior fucking product that is better for the people, why the fuck are you still selling cancer ham?
But I don't think any of it is superior, and that's the point.
Costs more to make, costs more to sell.
Costs more to package.
I know that in certain parts of Europe, like Denmark and like Sweden, the government makes sure that all those companies don't have that stuff available. So like GMO is banned and all that kind of stuff. So because they invest in the people.
So then it would have to be bigger than a tax?
It's bigger. It's more of like, let's invest in the people, like, but in America, they don't think like that. It's a business. It's a corporation. That's what.
So how would we shift that status quo of it being a corporation and try to err more towards the European notion of, we're for the people, we're trying to keep our populace healthy, this is preventative measures.
This is kind of more in the vein of European mentality, and we're talking about comparing it to the US and the way that they are taxed and the way that their healthcare system works. It's just, again, I'm putting it out there for dialogue because I am not in any way.
No, I appreciate your dialogue.
I want to get back to my point before I was interrupted by Anna. So let's say everything's been equalized, right?
Okay.
Like the good food and the bad food is the same,
okay.
Right?
No bad food. Cancer food not available.
But you're still giving the consumer the option. Like they still have to choose, right? So why would they choose the good food versus the bad food, right?
Yeah.
convenience.
Bad food's gonna kill you.
No, people don't give a shit about their health.
It's the time.
So let's eliminate. How are we going to eliminate that?
It comes down to convenience.
So how do we change
If I have to
that?
spend 40 minutes making a dinner, or I can just like throw something in the
Hungry Man.
Yeah, the Hungry Man.
Yeah.
And they're the same price. Which one am I going to choose?
Yeah.
I got no time. I got kids. I got this. I got that. I got baseball practice.
Do you
whatever.
think people actually feed their children microwavable dinners?
100%. Well, there people feed their children drive-through meals every day.
Like instead of cooking them food?
Yeah.
And there was, I watched this one documentary where there was this kid who drank Mountain Dew every single day. He wasn't even 18. All his teeth rotted out of his head, and he still kept drinking Mountain Dew. At the end of the day, if it tastes good, it's convenient for them.
If it's going to give them a bit more time with their kids or do other activities, even.
Or more time with their fucking Jenny Jones, or I guess that's not on anymore, like Oprah, whatever.
Yeah.
How old am I?
Bring back Jenny Jones.
Go ahead, handsome man number 3.
Yes, I like long walks on beaches and reading books.
Boring,
by myself.
basic.
And I cry myself to sleep.
Eat organic.
While he's masturbating.
Into a
This is
pool
his
of my
Tinder
own tears.
profile.
No, it is. This is a question I would ask. Then, is it what is the income to the quality of life where people are eating a lot more sugar versus those who have a lot more wealth? I mean, there is that, basic income and low income people are probably more likely to consume fast foods, carbohydrate foods, the pastas, the candy bars. They have
Italians eat lots of pasta. They're not unhealthy.
Okay. Here
And I say that because I'm Italian.
Okay, but we look at the North American diet, right?
Yeah, the
It's
North
donuts, it's burgers, it's
every day. Yeah.
But if you have a little bit more wealth, you can afford. You don't even think about what things cost. You go, I know that is healthy. I have a better education, and I'm more aware of that. I don't have just getting by food, and that's getting by food is fast food. And I think I do agree with the idea that when you become an adult, moreover when your brain is more fully developed, you have you can make these choices. But if you weren't well informed to begin with in choice making, it's unfortunate that you're going to always be dealt a shitty hand when it comes to making good choices because you don't have the skill set.
Well, I
so
think
diet is a large part of that.
I think what you guys are getting at is that you believe that if the sugar tax were to be a reality, right, then what's going to happen is that it's usually the people who can't afford it going to be the ones paying it, because they're the ones that are going to be most likely buying those bad foods more often than the people who can afford it. Is that, that's what you're getting at?
Choice,
See,
really.
I'm hoping. See, my hope with this would be more towards equalizing the choice. So if the problem isn't if we have to start from the fucking get-go and re-educate our children so that this is something that works feasibly in the future, because okay, fine, bad food syntax, whatever, isn't going to work tomorrow. Okay, it's not going to change the hearts and the minds of the mom tomorrow, but hopefully her kids will have that ability to choose. So I want to not eliminate their freedom of choice, but eliminate the idea that choice is necessary just for the sake of having choice. My freedom to choose whether I want to eat bad shit or not is my choice. Okay, cool, that's cool, but at the same time, you're really not contributing to the common good at that same juncture. So maybe it could potentially just lead to the fact that people are going to stop thinking about what's best for themselves and start thinking about, at one point, we've only had bananas and fucking tomatoes and that kind of shit in North America for the last 200 years, right? We've all survived thousands of fucking years without importing goddamn mangoes. Yeah. So it's why can't we teach our generations that, it's okay to not have a fucking banana? It's if all you can grow are, lettuce and tomatoes and or whatever, because I know you can grow tomatoes here now, but why can't we teach our children
eventually, like, okay, we're all looking at this bad food tax as like immediate. I'm looking at it as more of like the long term. So it might not work immediately, but do you think that eventually, if it became the norm, it would instill those values that have been sort of lost?
I would say education would work faster than trying to implement it on the government, because that's where the root is. If you change the minds of people, it doesn't matter what the government's selling. And I think that would force the companies to level the market, because nobody's buying those. Nobody's going to be buying those products anymore. So maybe that would force it to, like there'll still be a small percentage, but it would be a deficit for them. It'd be so obvious that it's like, I don't know. I feel like education would work faster than...
We're talking about such a larger issue that we're out of control of. Like, if we're already down that... Yeah. We've already snowballed down that hill, right? And I'm sorry to, like, jump on the thing when you've had your...
We're putting our hands up.
But I just wanted to say, because I only wanted to go back to my initial statement, which wasn't a statement, but that when I talked about the idea of having a tomato and knowing that I'm supposed, that's what I'm supposed to eat because I have access to it and I know that's better for me. I was a kid that grew up in a very low income household, and
what was your dinner? What was your dinner every night?
A lot of the times it was those frozen vegetable packs and fish sticks.
Okay.
Or we'd like make breakfast for dinner, that kind of thing, because it was cheap. Yeah. It was feasible for my mom, who ran a home daycare.
Okay.
Who had to feed many children over the course of the day.
Everybody, actually.
But it didn't mean that we didn't know that wasn't what we wanted to be eating.
Right.
You know,
you
she
knew there was
she grew up on a farm. She grew up on a farm. Like, we would go farm. Yeah. We grew stuff in our backyard as well. Yeah. But it couldn't sustain us because we live in Ontario. Yeah. In a cul-de-sac in central Ontario.
Okay, well, hang on. Before we go on, just 1 second. I'm going to ask everybody that question just quickly. Write down what you were about to say. Just to get an idea, everyone, just 2 minutes. I want to know basically what you grew up eating. So, like, what was your norm you said you were a low-income family. You had frozen vegetables and fish sticks, but you knew
we had good food when we could. But
your mom knew
day of the week
how to give you a proper meal. Yeah. What about you? What was your like Monday to Friday meal?
For me, I'm okay.
We're passing a joint.
So I grew up in a single parent household, but my mom is from Trinidad, and same with my grandparents. So all of my meals were always cooked every day. It was always like chicken and rice and peas. Everything was like cooked from scratch.
And you grew up in Toronto?
Yeah, in Hamilton. I grew up in Oshawa.
The GTA.
In the GTA.
Okay.
And my also religion was a huge part of my diet, I would say. Because my Adventists are like vegetarian, and so like my grandparents were like strictly vegetarian or vegan. Like yeah. So like whenever I would go there on the weekends, I would that's what it would be part of it. And when I'd go home, my mom would cook like chicken, but everything was home cooked. And then when I got older, I would mac and cheese and stuff like that. But yeah.
Mm-hmm. What about you, Reimer? Christian Reimer? Where did you grow up, and what did you grow up eating?
I grew up in Alberta, and
where in Alberta?
Calgary and rural Alberta.
Rural Alberta.
Yes. So I grew up on steak. And steak came with steak and potatoes.
Every night you had fucking steak.
Nice.
Yeah, but that's we're also steak and potatoes, steak and eggs, steak and beans, steak and salad, steak and soup and salad.
Would you consider yourself a middle class, upper class, lower class income?
Well, I'm gonna say in the 70s, I think we were probably a working.
He was 5.
Class.
Yeah.
All right. And then in the 80s, we were kind of like working almost middle class, and I think we were working class ever since.
And you were still eating steak.
Yeah. So you also got to take in mind that my family, they later move on the farm, so we'd raise a cow, and then that would be, to share it with the family and some other people who may have, been a part of that cow. I'm very fortunate, but there's also a window of time I can remember when my mom started going to work. right? And she didn't cook at home as much, and then that's when the hamburger helper showed up, and that was a treat once in a while.
Yeah.
Katie was always that kid thing you gave the kids, Katie, and and wieners, that. That's
I never had that.
Oh my god. Yeah, but I remember
I had that at one babysitter's, and when I told my parents, they never ever let us go back there again.
Understood.
Wow.
And I can't eat hot dogs anymore. Food poisoning here.
There's no tomato sauce.
Yeah.
Where's the tomato sauce?
It's passing.
Pass that on my ass.
Okay, so that's okay. Okay, so then.
But I remember when boxed food started coming into popularity late 70s, early 80s, at least at home, because it was convenient.
So how did you eat when you moved out of your house? Did you go hamburger helper or did you go fresh food?
Oh man, it was the 25 cents Ichiban noodles and beer.
So yeah.
And then sometimes.
So what about you, Jeremiah? Where did you grow up?
Debt,
What did you grow up?
Yeah.
Hey, ramen noodles for 2
I grew
months.
up in the Yukon, and I grew up eating super healthy. Like my mom would make her own ketchup.
Wow.
We'd
That's
have
why
like
he's so
whole
handsome.
grain, local like Alpine Bakery baked bread with alfalfa sprout sandwiches,
Oh,
big
that
chunks
sounds
of like.
disgusting.
So it was terrible.
Pretty
And
good.
that-
Imagine eating going to school with an alfalfa sprout
my lunch
sandwich.
was so healthy.
Right now, when you're your age,
now
but
I
when you're
respect what she made, and
You
I wish
and
I
I-
could eat every day.
there
the way
are
that she fed me as a
restaurants
kid.
But when you're 7, 8 years old in grade 3, everybody's got peanut butter. I know my parents sent me to school with fucking Italian paninis with like red pepper aioli and fucking like salami. You'd pull it out and it would smell like a fucking deli, and everybody would just be like, "What the fuck is she eating?" And I just be like, "I just want peanut butter and
I just
jam."
want bologna and like processed cheese and wonder bread. And
I had such a crush on the kids that came to school with like alfalfa.
You're just flirting.
sprouts. No, I didn't. I used to
When
bring
you
cottage
moved
cheese.
out, how
when
did
I
you
was
go?
adult.
What direction did you go?
I was a
I went I would eat a lot of ice cream. I'd always buy steak.
Right.
My sister was a vegetarian, so my mom would cook vegetarian, so she didn't have to cook separate meals.
Right.
So we'd have a lot of like tofurkey and that kind of stuff.
Oh my god.
You know, tofu, whatever. So our chilies would have tofu in it. It never.
Tofurkey is so much better now. Go on.
Yeah, I know. Anyway, so I would buy steak, and I would cook pretty well for my limited ability because I never really cooked for myself. So if I did like craft dinner, I'd try and like jazz it up with some broccoli or something like that.
You want to eat broccoli and hot dogs? What?
But I think like it's just progressively gotten more healthy. Like obviously, like the convenience factor is huge when you move out away from home. So it's like I don't know how to cook or what to cook. This has instructions, and I buy the ingredients. So you start using the box things. But over time, now I cook super healthy.
I grew Ryan.
First time.
Ryan. Tennis balls and socks. I'll never forget.
Yeah.
So Ryan Faubert, where are you from, and what did you grow up eating?
Well, I'm shocked about the Yukon. Like I did not expect that. I was expecting
Mama's special though.
like polar bear steaks.
I was gonna say, was that the norm?
Yeah, lots of wild game too.
But
I guess we didn't eat
like
meat.
seal
well, what you were
blubber and
describing was
stuff
that
like
the norm?
Yeah, because like, wouldn't alfalfa be
I think like there's
expensive
a
up there?
pretty big environmental hippie, whatever you want to call
Right.
it, community. Like a lot of people love nature. That's why they live there.
'Cause you're in
so a lot
Yellowknife.
of friends' families
Right? Is that
ate
where you
similar. Whitehorse,
Whitehorse, sorry.
Yukon, but
Sorry, I'm not from here.
but then anyone that was like lower class or like in poverty,
Yeah.
anyone that was living like in the First Nations communities, a lot of my First Nations friends, they all had like the cheapest, easiest sugars, and that's the stuff we wanted.
Yeah.
'Cause our
Yeah,
parents
like
would
my
pack
friends had
healthy foods.
Lunchables when they fucking went to school. Like,
Never had.
Oh, I could tell you nightmare
I wish.
stories about Lunchables.
so, okay.
So I
Thanks
grew
for
up
shooting it back to Jeremiah.
I grew up in Northern Ontario, and our family was lower income, and then we moved to middle income. But we would have. My mom used to make something called salmon and peas on toast, and it was
Salmon and peas?
salmon and peas on toast.
toast.
And it was basically like salmon soup, like a really thick salmon stew with like green peas,
Nice.
milk. I think there was like mushrooms in there as well, or
salmon
mushroom soup. And then she would
sounds amazing.
She would make pieces of toast, and then that would go over the toast, and we would eat it like that.
Oh, yeah.
And that was one of the main
It sounds
dishes.
kind of fancy.
Guys, it's mushroom toast, but with more.
Just throw a little alfalfa on there.
Yeah, so that wasn't healthy by any means.
All my
right?
friends grew up with a lot of privilege.
No.
Healthy, I feel like.
At least
It was
food
trying to be
privilege.
healthy.
Trying to be healthy and trying to feed you healthy.
Because none of us were rich. Like, my family wasn't rich.
Exactly. What we could afford at the time. We just didn't have the money
like,
to
my mom
buy
is our parents'
Okay, so-
generation
All right.
as well.
My mom.
Sorry.
All right.
There's like
all
4
right.
conversations going on.
Yeah.
Sorry, that's okay. That's what happens at the table. Continue. Sorry, Ryan.
Where was I?
You were.
Well, you said salmon and
Oh yeah, okay,
salmon
salmon and
toast.
cheese on toast, and that was when we were a little bit poor, and then when we got, like Reimer was saying, you get a little bit up in the ladder, and you start having chicken, and you start having a little bit of beef, and it got better and better and better as we got richer, as the family became more wealthy. And then when I started eating on my own, I took a lot of that over for sure. But I mean, I think in university or post-secondary life,
and beer.
it's KD all day, every day, right?
So, with growing up, then, how many of us, by a show of hands, which I will enumerate verbally, does anybody here have Chef Boyardee, like, on a reg?
I had it
On
high
the
school.
reg?
Okay, so
No.
one thing I want to say, because my mom, I guess first generation
Here,
but
born here.
yeah. But my mom said like this is one of her like biggest memories when she first moved to Canada was seeing condensed milk in a can. She was like that was like a huge deal. She's like I never thought that milk could come from a can. Like that was a big deal. So she's like. So
That you could
that's why it was
preserve
always
it?
fresh. Well, they didn't
like
in
driving
Trinidad.
cars,
They don't
yeah.
have milk in a can there. They
But they have
So,
milk.
just
you have milk like just
Yeah,
you get it
so
from
like the
cow.
idea of like how fresh it is
Yeah,
seems ridiculous to think you can condense and put
Exactly,
it in.
yeah.
milk
metal.
started coming in a can, just like Spam. During World War II, all these canned products, all these preserved products were produced for the soldiers. And there was an excess of all this food when the war ended. So they had to do something with it. And that's when like these preservatives and these convenience foods ended up on our shelves and marketed to the populace. Heather, where did you grow up and what did you grow up eating?
I grew up in a small town, northern Ontario, whatever. Thank you. 1,200 people.
Heather's got really big boobs, so directions aren't her thing.
Just up and down. No.
And all around. Anyway, go.
So basically, I had to learn how to cook at a young age.
Why?
Because my sisters and I were all fairly independent growing up.
Where was your mom and dad? Why were you?
They were separated, so my mom worked a lot, and my sister Allison took care of us while I was younger. But then, she would be out of the house too. So it's like
How
we
many
all just
sisters
sort of.
do you have?
I have 3 sisters.
And you are?
I'm the youngest.
You're the youngest.
Yeah.
Okay.
I'm the youngest.
So, but you were to cook your sisters.
So we all kind of fended for ourselves, like
Microwave food? Like-
we would microwave food. We like pizza pops.
Okay,
we would have
the
but then
convenience foods.
yeah, and then mom would cook for us. Like she'd make her her ham and pea soup when
Was
that's
that
one
like
of my
this
favorites.
smoked salmon?
No, it's not that fancy. It's just like leftovers, but it was like the ham and pea soup, and then we knew how to like pierogies, stuff out of a bag from the freezer.
Right.
Sometimes we would have like a nice dinner that was homemade, but sometimes it was just a fucking box of pizza.
Because she's a single fucking mom.
Yeah.
With 3 daughters, and that's what we do in this this society. My family.
But wait, when I would go down to my dad's, he was the opposite. He
And
would
did he have a wife? Was he married?
He had this
Look
huge
at me
garden.
and
So
my
I just thought that
progressions.
this was interesting because I basically have experienced both sides at the same time.
Right.
So my dad had this huge garden. Took
And almost
me
the
years.
opposite, Heather, because I would expect pops to be feeding you microwave fucking
That's
food.
the thought.
and
yeah.
mom to
That's
be
your
feeding
prejudice.
you.
Yeah.
That's
Yeah,
my
that is the
microaggression.
prejudice
I know.
of tonight. 3
But
beautiful men in the
my
room.
dad.
You're going to
It
jail.
was
Gross.
It was ritual with him whenever I go to his house, and every meal, there was some element of homemade. Like once in a while, we would go out for dinner, and it was a treat, and it was nice because
where would you go?
We go to like Pizza Hut in Fort Francis, or like
Fort
it was like the town nearby.
It's a place. Okay.
Yeah, and it was like, or we would go to the movies across the border because that's how you had to go to the movies. You had to go across the border to go to the movies.
That's how with no movie theater in it. Yeah.
My town is so small. There's no Tim Hortons.
Me too. I live in a small town.
Right? Yeah.
No movie
Me
theater.
too.
Yeah. So I experienced
We used to bring our own popcorn.
So
I
when you
experienced
moved
the
out,
convenience.
what happened?
Microwave.
So, because I was the last to move out, a lot had changed at that point, right? But when because I learned to cook so young.
Have really big boobs.
Yes.
Okay, just wondering. Go.
And my grandma.
Really?
Yeah.
Amazing.
Thanks, Anna. So I've learned because I learned to sort of cook and fend for myself at a younger age.
Right.
Coming out, and I had,
Okay, so putting a
both
piece of pop in
sides.
the microwave is cooking for you.
No, like I can cook. Like I can cook from fucking scratch. Like I can make curries and shit, but I also don't mind the convenience of having like a whole chicken cooked for me that I can just take home.
Right.
I can appreciate both. That's it.
Do you remember the first time I remember the first time my mom brought home a fully cooked chicken.
A rotisserie chicken from the grocery store.
Yeah, it was like, whoa, that was a big thing.
happened in my house.
Never.
But you had salmon!
Everyone's so jealous of that recipe.
I would have. Okay, so there.
I gotta get that recipe around before you leave.
No, and you're not even spoiled, because I get it.
Italian.
Everyone has their
I grew up Italian.
Where they grew up and their poor man's meal. Like none of that. It sounds so.
So my family,
We weren't poor on steak. I mean, we were poor on steak. We were rich on steak. We were poor on money. We were at the end of a meal.
Never had
Special occasions. Sometimes it might have been a birthday. Sometimes it was just, hey, there's some time to make some dessert in little Tupperware plastic dishes that you saw a craft commercial and poured it into a cup. Dessert, exactly.
Cheesecake or ice cream cake?
Bam.
Those two. It was like, yeah.
Dude, you feed me an appetizer over dessert.
And now we have so much.
It's not a thing in my house.
We have so much now in this world that we can have dessert for breakfast, lunch, dinner, and
it's right
snacks
in
in
our
between.
faces.
That's what I tell kids. The best part about being a grown-up.
And now we're looking
I tell kids the best part about being a grown-up is you can have cake and ice cream anytime.
Yeah, but that's why we have the rise and the obesity and diabetes.
But that's the sugar addiction, which is why people still buy those products. They buy the cheap shit because they're addicted to the sugar that's in it. They can't get that sugar unless they add it. And when you gotta add it when you're cooking, you gotta see it in a tablespoon and sprinkle it on.
No, what about when sugar was like fucking gold and it wasn't used in anything because it was as much as fucking cocaine, like a gram. You couldn't use cheap back right. Sugar was more expensive than fucking cocaine.
You only make 5 cents a week.
Right, it used to be a currency.
Just like salt was a currency as well.
Yeah. So then, what is this? This is a modern thing. Then so we can say definitely after World War II, this is sort of when it's kind of started to falter, and perhaps this is more relevant nowadays because our generation, and most of us in this room, are over the age of 25, right?
Yeah.
Yes, we're all.
Our parents didn't have the luxury of convenience food as a go-to. Like you were saying, like Hamburger Helper came later on, and so my mom and dad, your parents, their parents didn't throw something in the fucking microwave, right? So it wasn't their norm.
Yeah.
This level of our grandparents still aren't fucking throwing shit. Mine are dead, but they're like, my parents aren't microwaving shit. So it's more of like a newer idea, a newer notion. It's these newer parents, more like younger parents, newer generations of the Lunchables and it's a cultural thing because we don't encourage lunch as a family thing. Like when I grew up in Italy, we got 4-hour break in between school, and every store and restaurant and everything is closed
from 12:30 to 4:30 because everybody fucking goes home to eat and take a little nap and have that family time. We don't encourage that here. So convenience. So like the bad food tax. Okay, and we'll go around right now and ask. I'm going to ask you all: is it a feasible, like on a scale of feasible to nonsense? How do you think this would work to change the world, and how do you think it would change the world if it were to change? And keep your answers short, but also keep this in mind. So it would have to be. I think it would have to start at the top, right? We would have to start to put value on things like nutrition, family, and we wouldn't be able to have 2 full-time working parents in the fucking home. If you can't afford a cook or a chef, you don't have the time to feed your children. You know, like as a nanny, I nannied this one kid who refused to eat anything but ketchup sandwiches.
That is
he had a single mother, okay, who went to university 8 hours a fucking day and then went to work on commission selling appliances for 8 hours a day. So she was at work 16 hours a day. She'd be at home for maybe 3. So why the fuck is she going to spend those moments arguing with her child about not eating a ketchup sandwich? So as a nanny, I used to say, I get paid to argue with your kids. So obviously I had the time to show this kid that like there's more than just ketchup sandwiches. But with a single mom or a single father or a single family or a single income home, it's virtually impossible to be able to provide the level of nutrition that you want to provide for your children unless we reward good food by making it cheaper. So cheaper to produce, cheaper to sell, cheaper to market, right? Can we all agree on that at least?
Yeah.
And then tax the bad food so that we're going to reverse it so that now bad foods are for rich people. If they want to fucking make themselves unhealthy and kill themselves off, great.
That combined with re-education, I think would absolutely change the world.
Okay,
but I think the education is the most important part because, like, what do we have? Fit for Life or something like that? Like, I had this when I was in school, right? And we learned about the different grains in the food groups. And dairy apparently is not a food group, but they just put it in there.
Do you remember that
anyway,
huge triangle
off topic.
we used to have?
But yeah, we used to have to do that, right? So I kind of already know, like, this is kind of how I should eat. Plus my parents, like the way I was raised being fed healthy food. I get what's right because I got it from a young age. So it's like, I know that's how I'm supposed to eat. And I'm always trying to get back to that point. The way so, but I have the education behind it. I think a lot of people just don't have the education. Like,
well,
they just don't
you think? I think that the terrifying thing is that when we were in school, the triangle of like the amount of the income of what you're supposed to have, like the intake, what you're supposed to have of each thing, has virtually reversed.
Exactly.
So everything we know is wrong anyway, and so I don't think that's what it's about. It's about who is owning the leadership on what is being owned by what company, who's overseeing what farms,
who's funding the research,
is dictating what you should be getting most in your diet by what they're going to get out of it.
So everything you're getting
that's
what I mean by the companies and corporations. Corporations here are the ones who are the leaders.
Yes,
it's not in Europe and government,
and we have the advantage to know that
exactly. And that's why I'm saying consumers. If you educate the consumer, then eventually the market will change because we will no longer be consuming those things because knowledge, like when you educate someone, a young person, like there's, for example, there's like low income inner city programs where they teach inner city youths to have their own gardens, and that's making a huge impact.
Being taught that it's easy to have
those
a garden.
kids, their parents can't afford. Their parents may be addicted to drugs, or are mothers who work 16 hours and don't. But these kids are coming back to their homes with vegetables that they grew themselves. and they get their and then that's how they bring it into the home. So that's the only way, because corporations run our government here. It's not the other way around.
No. You're making an assumption there, and you are wrong on that. Because I'm sorry, in Canada.
But the food,
that's her opinion.
In Canada, our government is set up that the corporations cannot legally affect us as their view.
That's a different argument.
Can I just say something? There's all loopholes, and the whole food, the food pyramid is a very good example of that.
Yes.
Because look how long it took people to lobbyists and everything to change that.
This is supposed to be a wrap up, everybody. So
there has been changes, at least here in Canada, to the food pyramid. They have changed how we eat. You're right. They flipped it upside down. I understand. I don't know if this has all been put into place, but now is eating with people and friends, because this country is well known for like eating on the go.
Yeah.
Man.
Yes.
Yeah. We almost shame Americans in that shit. They like constantly eat while you're doing lunch.
Together as a family, cooking together. Everybody leaves work, comes and cooks a meal together, eats together.
You literally eat for 3 hours, take a 45-minute nap, and go back to work.
That's the point of exactly like just educating and keeping tradition alive, and just being like, hey, this is how you have a good meal. Just having a home cooked meal.
Yes.
Is so
I'll stand by that remark. I think the value of coming to community and understanding the value of eating and dining and enjoying the food dining experience is a huge thing, and I keep
to answer that question,
What's the question?
about
Can you reiterate the question?
will it change the world? I don't think that this would change the world. I don't think it would change what people do or say. I think the biggest influence is generational. And all these ideas about food and about what's good and bad and how to market things to ourselves and how to sell things to ourselves, that generation that figured that out and imposed that on our society is dying off. And we're only having this conversation because that mentality is slowly going away, and we're like, wait a minute, that wasn't the truth. They told us some lies, and we got to figure it out for ourselves now.
Yeah.
And all those baby boomers are fucking dying off, so their influence is dying off, and the state of mind is dying off. So we're moving into almost a new state of consciousness, and we're all waking up and realizing, wait a minute, there's something better. Like, let's make something better.
We're all a little more educated too, right? Because everyone knows someone who's gluten-free who can explain to you why they're eating that way.
Okay.
And whether or not you agree with it, you clock it, and you're like, okay, that's the information.
But we're
that
curious
they have,
now,
right?
We're just not taking the word for it. Like, we're curious. There's lots of information out there now. There's lots of sources.
Don't you think there's just as many people that are bitter at this whole like gluten-free? Like,
you can educate yourself as like you have more power now as an individual because of all this information at your disposal.
People like that are choosing to remain ignorant to an idea.
Well, the only thing
I
would say is.
That's it.
The only thing I would say is habit is the hardest thing to break. And these companies, I know I keep going back to corporate America or whatever, but I feel like that's like where the root is, right? Like these companies, they've already created these habits that we've formed. And now the biggest thing, the challenge is to break these habits, and that's where education comes in. That's the only way, is to kill it. Because parents...
It starts at us, right? Like, we trickle up to them.
Exactly. Exactly. And if, like, technology, everything now, this is a convenience generation. Just from since whatever on. Everything is based off convenience. Technology, like, literally everything. We have home speakers or smart speakers, literally, apps that tell us what time things come. Literally, we don't have to wait for anything anymore. So there's the challenge.
It's made us a very impatient culture, and I think,
just because that's what we are doesn't mean it's what we should be.
No, exactly. And to go back to your initial question, which was about the UK tax on sugar, when we look at the work and lifestyles of those of us on the other side of the ocean, who have more appreciation sometimes for not having that work week or that time, or cooking, spending time around a table with a family, appreciation of what is available in their own country or in their own backyard. I fucking love food. I love my relationship to the dining experience, hosting people, having them experience food, something maybe they've never tried, over a communal.
Yeah.
What is happening over here? All of the lines are happening.
They're passing things back and forth. And
But it's so hard because there is such an emotional response to food,
Exactly.
which
wine.
And you think down to like the chemicals, right, in our brains, and how like food is fuel, and so if we come at food from that aspect where it's fuel and not just like something, but we don't, right?
We did it.
Convenience.
We did it for like sugar and fats were a survival thing back in the day, because that's when we were fucking little cavemen that we needed sugar. We needed sugar and fats to survive.
Now it's like 10 times.
And salt. Yeah. So I think this would change the world, because I think it would change it for the better, because something as small as applying a sugar tax would not only change the trajectory of how we eat, how we appreciate food, like we have lost that appreciation. I feel like we need to bring that appreciation for where the food comes from.
Yeah.
Not just the fact that here's, McLean's, like, pre-made, microwavable, like, thanks, that took no time, and I'm gonna just eat all 10
Can I
of
ask a
these.
question?
Yeah.
Around the room in one, like, quick, like, hot subject matter. Are you for the tax against the consumer or against the corporation? If you're for the corporation, raise your hand.
Against the corporation.
I think we have both.
Tax on the corporation?
I feel like it's going to end up being against the consumer anyway. It trickles down.
Okay.
It always.
So everyone else is taxed against the
So
consumer.
what were you gonna say?
I want to get back to kind of like to what Heather was saying. Was this when you're talking about going back to the basics, and we can't really. We can't do that because we're not hunters and gatherers, because so much of the things that we are designed to crave are so readily available.
Yes.
Almost at equal levels. But how do we put ourselves back into balance to where our biotypes probably were?
Yes.
And that is to likely put an economic, hammer on it in order to reset our systems, because if it is fat, salt, and sugar, right, and we have those in a certain balance,
And I think anything that we can't pronounce, like any weird,
like zygonotic, like
shit like that. Like that's my
inventicine.
Sounds like an alien planet or something.
Yeah.
Okay, so then in the end, really quickly, let's do this. Okay, we're gonna do on a scale of feasible to nonsense. You're gonna use those particular words.
Yeah.
And then you're gonna say, on a scale of feasible to nonsense, I think this is or and I don't think it would contribute to changing the world, or I think it will. Okay. Say your name first, and then do that. Start. June.
God. Slate. Oh my God. Feasible to nonsense. In what regard?
On a scale of feasible to nonsense,
It is blank.
it is
We just went through it?
feasible.
Did I just
Or not.
Yeah, I know. But what do I think is
Might
feasible?
have to say it again.
So considering everything that
Blank
we
or
just
blank?
took, do you think a sugar tax would change the world on a scale of feasible to nonsense?
I mean, isn't that already happening?
Feasible or not?
Feasible to nonsense. I think more to the nonsense side.
Okay.
And it's pretty high.
And do you think it would change the world? Then no, right? Because if it's nonsense.
I think it's already been changing the world, and we're just not doing it.
All right.
So I think in that regard, it's very.
Yeah, I would also say it would be nonsense, because I know, like, you could put a sugar tax, but people still will buy it. At the end of the day, what is the end goal? Is it the end goal to have everybody healthy?
Tamika.
Yes, Tamika. Is the end goal to be healthy as a race? Because if so, then it should be up to the government. The government should be able to make that possible for everybody. It should not be up to the consumers. Like, we're going to make our own decisions, but if you want to change the world, then you have to, start there and not leave it up to you.
All right, Chris, what about you?
Christian?
I've gone through all my names: Chris, Christian, Reimer,
Ryan.
Hey, you.
See, Hammer Bammer.
Ryan.
Handsome man.
What's your number?
Handsome man number 3. The beige guy.
Mustache rides .3.
Mustache rides 5 cents. That's right.
Bring it all
I
back.
don't know what that means.
It's real fucking hungry, eh?
But so what was that? The question is, feasible or not feasible? I think it's feasible. Yeah, again, I think it does put life back into balance. Like, if we put a cost on things and go, oh, I'm now aware that sugar is being taxed. For what reason? It'll probably bring the attention to people whom are like, what the fuck? And then if we can then somehow bring down or reduce salt and, all the good stuff, the proteins, the healthy life that we need to live, if we can make that into an economic balance somehow, and a tax makes that happen, make it happen. And it also covers our healthcare costs when we're sick in the hospital.
Oh, nice.
Well,
Yeah.
all right, Jeremiah. What about you, Jeremiah?
Yeah. Feasible to nonsense? I think feasible. I think it's, if it was taxed properly to the corporations, and if government stopped being controlled by corporations, if it came into place almost like the carbon tax, like we're feeling it right away. Carbon tax, you feel it.
Yeah.
Right? If that happened tomorrow, if they just said, you know what, we're going to deal with the backlash from the oil companies or whatever, still implement this tax, still fight the other provinces on it, and the government just implemented it, then it would have a positive effect on the economy.
All right.
It would.
So it will change.
Just because the cost has gone up is going to create
some people to second guess themselves.
Yeah.
Okay. Cool. What about you, Ryan?
I don't think it's feasible.
Okay. So it's nonsense.
It's nonsense. Just because I think we still have a lot to learn, and we still have a long ways to go in taking care of ourselves as individuals and as a community. So, I mean, if we took care of each other and ourselves better, I think it would exponentially move through the society as a whole. But it has to start, I think, there, and I don't see it right yet. I don't see that happening just yet. We're getting there, but
Oh, well, on that note, I think it's also feasible because of, maybe not right now. I see it feasible in, what Anna was saying before. I see it feasible as something that could happen in the next 5 years, 10 years, But for those reasons, that I think it would get people to think twice about what they're buying, and it would benefit people who already don't really buy into sugar. It'll just make them cut it out completely, and it would make people, question that choice that they have.
I would like to see, in my perfect world, Annapropriate land, I really would like to see it bring more of a balance. So to eliminate the option of the fucking cancerous, bad for you shit food. So that stuff that shouldn't exist stops existing. So ideally, that's where I would hope the tax would lead. So I would hope it would be like an industry tax on that, so that the production ceases, and that, we can bring it back to more like localized food, localized farming. I don't think beef is bad. I don't think being a vegan is bad. I think mass production of anything is bad, and that's what's really bringing a huge, problem. So I would like to say thank you all so much.
Yeah.
We're gonna go around. You're all gonna say your names real quick, and then I'm going to say
Goodbye.
Goodbye. So once again, I want to thank you all for coming to Revolution number 10 at the table.
I'm Jeremiah.
I'm Ryan.
I'm Heather.
I'm June.
I'm Tamika.
And I'm Chris and Ryan, Rhymer, hey you.
And I'm Anna, and you are at the table.